What is up? Enter broadcast. It's just one of them days. Add to stream. Now you can see my back. Now you can see my printer. And what I'm actually going to be doing. Sort of. This would work so much better if StreamYard would make it so I didn't have to run it through the darn headset, which is very, very obnoxious. What is up, Zolan and Zachary? How's it going, guys? After the print detached from the build plate, why was the print detaching from the build plate? And which print? You've only got like 1,000 printers. I'm down to one. This one. And I'm going to take it apart. That is really not too smart. Because this one, and that's very loud, has no extruder on it. Don't! No extruder on that there pumpkin. The pumpkin, I sold both of my Chimeras. Hey, YouTube says I'm live. I kind of had a mental, what's the word I'm looking for? Whatever. I didn't want to sell them because I was given both the Chimeras. I had what's the word I'm looking for? A moral discrepancy on selling them, where I was given them. One of them I wanted in a raffle kind of thing, and one of them my brother gave me for Christmas last year. But the guy I sold them to, which I don't know if he wants to be named or not, so I won't say anything unless he comes in here and says it's good. Michael Fox, what's up, dude? Anyway, I gave him a decent deal, and he's like, don't worry about it. I want the Chimeras. Those are perfect. You're giving me a discount. He bought both of them. Blah, blah, blah. So it basically covered buying the Omnia Drop. So I'm replacing both my Chimeras with an Omnia Drop, which I already have one, a bright orange one, which the bright orange one is going to go on that printer, which is now on this printer. So hopefully in a week, I'm going to be tearing both printers apart and being in the same boat I'm going to do myself today. But I'm hoping, after talking with Max at Omnia Drop, I don't actually have to tear this one off this one, if you can see it. There you go. Sort of see it. The belts are in the way, but that one. I won't have to actually tear that off. I can just take the few orange parts off. I have to wait a little extra because I special ordered it working with Max. I actually ordered the Christmas version, which is you can't buy anymore. It ended yesterday. Yesterday, I think, was the last day you could order the Christmas version. But I wanted it in purple. And he's like, I'll do it for you, dude, but it's going to take a little while. Blah, blah, blah. You know, he doesn't have them pre-made, so he's got to make it. And if you don't know the Omni Drop, that is an Omni Drop. It's a 3D printed extruder that's geared through orbital gearing system, which is freaking awesome. Honestly, when he sent it to me, I saw one. Chris Riley did a video on him. 3D Printing General, I think, did a video on him, and a couple other people. I saw it, and I thought it was kind of gimmicky, but I was like, that's pretty cool. I'd like to compare it against my Chimeras. And like an hour later, Max saw my comment in one of the videos and said, dude, do you really want to compare them? You know, I'll send you one. I was like, okay. So he sent me this one, which was awesome. And I was like, this thing's cool, but, you know, it's 3D printed. It's kind of gimmicky. I've been using it now for, 3 or 4 months, 3 months on and off. And I absolutely love it to the point where I got rid of the 2 Chimeras and got another one of those. So that tells you how good they are. What's up, Mika? Mecca? Mecca Steve? Mika Steve? How do I know that name? How do I know you? I know you from somewhere. Anyway. Oh, you were on my stream the other night, weren't you? You like popped in and out. Anyway. So I'm getting another Omnia drop, and I'm hoping the orange parts I can just pull off, leave that on there. Now, the new ones are no longer PETG. That's the other thing. He's gone to polycarbonate for the frames. If you don't know the whole specs of the Omnia drop, the outer core is a plastic, basic PETG, polycarbonate, whatever, depending on when you get it. You can print your own if you want to change the colors. But he's doing them in polycarbonate now. The gearing and the gear beds and all of that are actually made of the IGUS material. I don't know if you've ever seen the IGUS bearings and stuff. That's what he makes the gears out of. All the gearing is made out of that IGUS material, which is very similar to nylon in properties in the sense that it's self-lubricating. It's not flexible, but it has enough flex so its wear is lowered and that kind of thing. It doesn't really wear itself. Tipsy. Yeah, it's all right. We were just having fun. Anyway. Yeah, so I'm getting another one. But for now, these towers are awesome. I'm glad I went to this. I don't know if you ever saw the other one, but the whole tower used to be 3D printed. Now I just made a bracket that goes onto a piece of 2020, which is a buttload stiffer. Literally this whole tower was 3D printed originally in the design. And over time it would flex. I've tried the towers in ABS, polycarbonate, and PETG, and all three flexed like immediately upon tensioning the belts because as you can see, my belts are pretty tight. I used to do them in PLA and that's when everyone's like, oh, PLA is weakest. PLA is actually the strongest material we have that we can print, just about, in the sense of rigidity and holding power. You can put more tension and PLA will move the less, flex the least, it's most rigid, and will take a higher pressure than pretty much any other material we have. Now, polycarbonate, ABS, nylons, they'll take good pressure, but they flex, they move, which you don't want holding your belts. The thing I found is like the polycarbonate just bent right over. I mean, literally the minute I tension this about half of this, you can see it flex right out. So anyway, the problem is when I redesign these towers, the location of these pulleys are like a millimeter, just short of a millimeter, too far in. So as I move the carriage over, and you can't see it because it's all dark, it's actually rubbing right here. This belt. I need more light. Light. I need more light because it's all dark. That probably didn't help at all. Maybe a little bit. Let's make that big, and then you should be able to see it. There you go. You still really can't see it, but anyway, it's rubbing right here. Right there. Right on this edge. And it only does it like right about here, which is literally right at the end of the motion. As you can see, the pin, I've actually got my dial gauge on here, indicator. That's right at the edge of the build plate. So, I am going to replace them, which is kind of brave because that means I got to unstring the belts and reset the whole damn printer. And it's the only one I got working right now. So it's kind of not the smartest thing I've ever done. But it's not like I haven't tensioned these belts before. Now, the other thing I've come to learn, everyone loves Core XY. I love Core XY. Obviously, I built one, designed it, built it, blah, blah, blah. there are a few things that I have learned with the Core XYs, and that is angle of belt attack or belt path. And the thing I've learned is that this belt path right here has to be straight, and this belt path right here has to be straight, and this belt path has to be straight. So anything coming from this tower out needs to be straight, and anything coming from this tower to the carriage needs to be straight. I have learned if there's even the slightest deviation in here, in this or this one. Now this one here can go anywhere I want. I can actually move this, well, you can't see, plenty of stuff you guys can't see. I can move this pulley, the lower one, out all over the place, because this doesn't matter. As long as it's tensioned, it doesn't matter how straight it is. It's just this belt and this belt have to be in a parallel line, and these two belts here have to be in a parallel line. Otherwise, when you go to print something and you do a 2020 cube, you will not get a 2020 cube. You'll get all kinds of weird angles, and nothing will be square and nothing will be straight. And what's up, Andrew? And yeah. So that's my plan today, is I'm going to replace these two. It's very minor. I don't even think I'm getting, like, when I do a 2020 cube, it's darn close. It's like 19.95. So I'm I'm more than close enough. And I don't even think this is going to straighten it out in the sense of making the 2020 cube actually 2020 anymore. But it's bothering me that it rubs there. It's rubbing right here on the bottom of this carriage. Now, I could knock this carriage back, but I really don't want to. And, this not being aligned, which is, you probably can't see it, but if you look straight down, you can see this belt and this belt are not directly on top of each other. Which, again, doesn't really matter in the sense that this one can be off, but the problem is this one's the one that's off. This one's actually straight with the frame. Like if I bring a straight edge up from here and measure to these two belts, this one's perfectly parallel with the frame, and this one's not. And this one's the one that needs to be. This one can be anywhere. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. What's up, Mike? And everybody else. And if anyone wants to join in, they're more than welcome to. Note, this is my regular channel. This is not my chitty chatty channel. And you guys are not going to be able to see a thing there because of the sunlight. And I'm going to make you all sick while I pull out the legs and make it a little bit taller. Not that they made it a whole lot taller, but a little bit taller. And let me get rid of the bright sunlight, or at least some of it. That should help. And actually, let me bring sunlight in over here. So we have floodlight flooding the area. And that way we have a much more even lighting like we should have. And I should have done all this beforehand, but this was a last minute. Nobody else was streaming thing. And can you even hear me anymore? I'm all the way on the other side of the room. And I believe if I take this, we'll put that like that, that'll add more light to that area, which it added almost too much light to this area. So there we have it. If anyone wants to jump in, like I said, this is my real channel. So if you do jump in, this is a little, we try and keep it PG-13, not RX rated. So you are more than welcome to hop in. But again, keep it reasonably clean. And let's hang out. It's Saturday, the 2nd of January of a brand new year. I'm not even going to state last year because it's just not even worth talking about. I am like literally tired already of the let's look at the past year and review of the 2020. It's like, no, let's not review 2020. Let's forget all about 2020. Let's just make it go away. So, and of course, this is going to be a major pain in the butt. Can you guys hear me with the mic way over there? Might be a little hollow at this distance. It's such a pain in the butt. It's so easy to unwind that stuff and such a pain in the butt to put it back together. I gotta take that gauge off of there. If I can. And let's start taking crap off. I was going to do some designing today too, but my little computer is not really ballsy enough to stream and do CAD. It can do it, but it gets kind of laggy on my end. I've done it. It works, but I wanted to do something a little more powerful, and it just doesn't do it very well. So, not happening. So here's the old one. Here's the new ones. There's literally very little difference in them other than the location. This is almost centered on the old one, and then you can see it's way off to the left here, or right on this one. No, working on printers. Actually, I'm pretty good at working on printers. I do a lot of stupid things, but this is I do. I'm actually, the only problem is that I'm getting old and I need my glasses. Need my glasses. And I haven't fit anything yet, so I might be just putting it back together. Especially if I lose the parts. If you didn't notice, I actually have my pulleys designed to pop in. I don't know if you can see it. I've actually got little raised ridges that ride on the race. If you look on a pulley, you need it to hit this inner circle only. There's a lot of people that just let them float, which works. If it rubs on here, the printer has enough oomph to, make it work. But to make the bearing actually work properly, you need it to ride just on this silver inner core. This aluminum outer core, if it rubs on that, you're no good. So I actually designed them when they print, and I print them at pretty high resolution. I think I printed these at like 0.12 or 0.1. You can see the little lip in there. Now there's a lot of crap in there from supports and overhangs. There's actually not that many supports. I only put supports where I absolutely have to. I usually put a ridge in the middle, so it's got a little droop, but it's not enough to actually hit, as I tested a bunch of times. And these kind of snap in and line up, and you make sure they still spin, and they do. This is the right one, right? Yep. And then line it everything up. Okay. Why isn't that going on? What am I hitting? Because it's going down through. So I'm hitting something. Hitting something. Not lined up, that's all. Oh, I'm not even getting down through to the other one. That's why. Is there a piece of goopily goop in the way? I should have run the screw through before I put the bearings in, which I haven't done yet. Yep, there's a piece of gobbledygook in the way, which we can fix rather easily. Rather easily. There we go. And there it is. Little piece of something got in the print. It is kind of small. And I did these. I usually do them with the 0.4 or even smaller nozzle. And I actually printed these and these with the 0.6 nozzle. And I'm surprised how well they came out, to be honest with you. Because they did come out pretty good, considering all in all. Now, the other thing of note is these are all now LDO bearings. And I originally built this thing with cheapo bearings. You know, idlers with cheapos. What's up? Maximilian and Ryan. Somewhere down here is a nut, which I also didn't pre-fit, and I know that's not going to fit because I made it to have to be cut out. So I got to take that back out and back cut this. I should have prepped these things already, but oh well. That is life. There's not enough light there. So new plan on that. Let's get these out. What is up, Mr. Lady Speed? I need to get like a magnet that just floats up above so parts don't fall on the floor. You know, I used to put like paper towel down on the table, which I should do, because I've learned that the paper towel has enough, like, I don't know, give, bounce, whatever, that when parts hit them, they don't just roll off the table. They kind of just stop right then and there. So you know what? I'm going to do that right now. I did this years ago, and it actually works. If you do everything on a paper towel, stuff hits it, it just stops. It doesn't like roll off the table. Pretty cool. And you can do that like the slat mats and stuff. They all do the same thing. Paper towel works for me. Now, I need to get an M3 screw Not a lot, nut screws. Just a regular M3 screw. These M3s are M2s. These are M3s. Regular old M3 screw. And you'll see in a second what I'm doing here. M3. And the longest M3 bolt I got without using my good ones, because it ain't going to be good in a second. And I'm going to do some goofiness here. Which, you know, it's me, so what else would you expect? So goofiness. And what I do is, this one and this one, and that one's an old one, is I heat it up, and I deliberately design these this way, so they countersink in a little bit, and you gotta set them into the plastic. And of course, this lighter doesn't want to work. Come on. It's just obnoxious. There we go. Thing's full. They're cheap. I gotta get better lighters. I like the idea of these grill lighters, I guess you call them, charcoal lighters, whatever they are. But I've gotten good ones and cheap ones, and none of them seem to work well. And the thing's almost full. And I don't want to like. Let's try this one. Luckily, I have two. This one's working. And I just heat it up a little bit so I can just counter it into the plastic. And of course, this has already got the screw in the way. It's still hot enough. We will find out. Oh yeah, it's hot enough. Set it right in there. I don't think it's quite straight. And this screw's a little warm. Not terribly, but a little. Let's see if it'll grab. And it does. Now, tighten it right up. Make sure these still roll, and they roll beautifully. That one's done. Let's do it again. Let's take this one apart. Why is it? You got like menus and scroll wheels. If I get my face in there, you can't see what I'm doing on the table. Oh, well, you don't need to see my ugly face. This is more important. Out of gas. What kind of gas? Like literally out of gas? Or you have no... Oh, the lighter's out of gas. No, the lighter's full. It's got a little window. They're refillables, which is part of the problem. I found that refillables just don't work so well. I've even bought halfway decent, like $25 ones, and they just don't. The one-time fill, you know, disposable ones always seem to work better, except for they just don't last very long. And that's an old one. And this is the new one. Let's run the screw through and make sure I don't have any schmutz in the hole, which I think I do, on the bottoms of them all. As you can see, I have these pretty tight tolerance, and again, where I printed them with the 0.6 nozzle, they are pretty tight. Everything is pretty tight, which is good, and that's perfect. All right, let's get our nut embedded. Let's embed our nut. Not going there. Little heat. Now, normally, this is the cheaper of the two, and I have the most problems with this later. That one I got because it's actually a better, I mean, they're still cheap, but it's better later in general. Of course, today it's decided not to work. Line it up and just drop it in. Come on, stay. It looks somewhat straight. I mean, it'll straighten itself out to some extent as long as it bites reasonably straight. And let's pop this back in, and let's pop this back in. Should line up and see it's clear. It's spinning. Yep. Didn't have to thread that, but that's all right. And there we go. Okay, something's binding that upper pulley. I have a feeling there's a piece of schmutz in there. Schmutz. Do I see any schmutz? Yes, I do. It's in the back. That's where it's rubbing. And the schmutz is gone. That's probably why it didn't want to line up, because something was hitting it in the back. And they are rolling beautifully. And that is some smooth rolling wheels. Happy you can see them. Alrighty. Let's put these things back together. Which my fat frickin' hands have a hard time doing with these little parts, but you know, that's life. That is life. Anybody else want to hop in here? I'll post the link again if you do. And hang out and just BS. I was going to do a strictly hangout stream, but this is needing to be done more because it was driving me nuts than any actual reason for it to be done. My OCD, I guess you could say, was kicking in. My sleeves catching the tool. And of course, I didn't mark the height, so I'm going to have to frickin' adjust the height, you dummy. Oh well. This is the hard part, is getting these. I don't know if you've seen these. These are slide-in type T-nuts. They don't like to start, is I guess the word often. A lot of times I have to actually put the other one together. A lot of times I have to actually put them into the 2020 into the groove before I mount them, which I can't really do right now because it's all built without taking half the printer apart. So I'm going to have to fight them. I have been thinking, I don't know, what do you guys think? If you take one of these, where it's all perfectly square in the channel, if you knock an angle into this corner, all four corners, I have a feeling it would start easier, if that makes sense. I don't know if you guys have fought these, trying to get them to go into the channel. The tolerance is too tight, and it's hard to get them lined up and started. Once they're in, they work fine, slide around, but getting them to start is a pain. And I'm wondering if I knocked a little angle on them, just the corner, just the very beginning of it, if it would help it align to the channel easier. That makes sense. Kind of like when you take a screw and they back countersink the tip of it a little bit to get it to start and align better. I don't know. It might be a thing. Then again, it might not be. So this is this one right here. And like I said, I have to fight these things to get them to start. I wonder if I can bring the camera over here. If I turn these two off, I can turn this light on too. That might help a little. And you might actually be able to see what I'm doing here. Getting these straight to line up to that channel is like really difficult. Because they like to rotate like that one's doing. There's probably an easier way. In fact, I know there is, but I just don't know it. There's two. Two more to go. No, 6 more to go. And usually the first two are the hardest two, and then the next ones are, like you saw there, a little bit easier because the whole carriage is lined up. And let's get these in there. You actually see what I'm doing? Sort of. There you go. You just gotta get them lined up just perfectly. Or else they just don't want to go in. That was almost, oops, something right. Whoa, that was way too easy. He's never going that easy. Whoa, that was super easy. All right then. Much, much, much too easy. So, somewhere I had written down the height, and I have no idea where I put it. Oh, crap. So I'm going to have to wing it for now. The good thing is I'm going to do the lower one first because, the upper one just gets in the way of the lower one if you do it first. Can you guys even hear me where my mic is behind me? Do you even care? What's up, Michael? Hopefully. This will all work better. Now, one thing I've learned when adjusting belts like this, where I have no belt tensioner other than the belt itself, I have learned that taking a simple clip is enough to actually tension. If you put it on the belt and the teeth are meeting, well, it's a meeting teeth, and you clamp it down, the pull is on the teeth, not on the clamp, and the clamp holds for temporary purposes, and it actually works really well. Believe it or not. And you can't knock off the llama heads. No, they'll pop right back on if they did get knocked off, but must have llama heads on the llama core. A couple more tweaks, and this actually won't be such a bad printer. And I might actually release it. Not that it's that great of a printer, but it's actually not bad. It's gotten better over the iterations. It actually prints pretty well. And I always swore I'd never release the files for it. But now that I got it halfway decent, I just might. And let other people tweak on it too, if they wanted to. All right. Now I need to set the height, which is actually pretty easy here, because all I do is bring the carriage all the way forward, and then slide it until everything is straight. And why is it going uphill? Oh, because this bolt isn't on the pulley. That would be a good reason. Knew something didn't look right. And I'm just using these clips to hold them temporarily so I can line everything up. And it puts a little bit of tension on them without putting a lot of tension on them. And I think I got this one. But let's double check it. And get it at least close. Bring it all the way out here. And I measure to there. I can at least get a good idea. Right around 5. Again, I'm not going to try and get it perfect, which that's darn close. That's a little low. And again, I'm just using tape measure. I will fine tune it later. But that's darn good. Pretty darn close. So I can now tighten these up, which will probably shift everything, but that's all right. I'm going to move my little camera over here. It's in the way. You guys can see what I'm doing here, but sorry if you can't. And now, question is, does it hit anymore? The answer is no. And it looks to be darn near perfect alignment. And let's just double check it by dropping everything on the floor. And that's darn close. And again, I can measure this later and double check. Right now, I'm just trying to get an idea. And actually, I'm thinking I might need to move this out. I think the lower one is actually more precise now. Okay, I'm one of those people, I get like anxiety attacks if everything's a mess, disorganized. And this is all very much a mess over here. But I can't stand clutter. What's up, Danny boy? How was life this morning? Again, anyone want to jump in? They're more than welcome to. Again, all I ask is, let's keep it PG, not R or X. Because this is my real channel, not my chit chat channel. Heights look good. Everything looks parallel. I actually think I want to move this out like a 0.5 millimeter, but it's so close. Let's square it up. What did I do with my big square? Because I know. What did I do with my big square? It's over here. Sorry. Waving cameras around. I know it ain't square no more. Yes. It's darn close though. The minute I tension one of these, it's going to blow it out. Well, they're actually pretty taut. A Core XY expert? I don't believe a word of it. I don't believe it.
It's true.
It's not true.
It's true.
It's not true.
And I'm a Delta expert. Think I got that?
How are you?
As long as I have one, I'm an expert.
I don't believe it.
Yeah, I don't know shit, actually. Oh, sorry.
Okay, I fixed it for you. Let's not leave that there. We don't.
I know you're sparking. You're triggering me right now.
Huh?
You're triggering me.
I know.
Don't make me. Don't make me.
it better.
I got my hat sitting right here, Lama.
How is your Core XY working? You finally got that thing pretty well tuned in again, don't you?
It's doing great, man. Ever since I fixed that extruder, it's been near perfect, really. But yeah, it's pretty much what I use now. Mostly everything I print's on it now. It's so damn fast, man. It's hard to. You see the print time difference, and 6 hours or 16 hours.
I'm not that big on high speed.
Mm-hmm.
I like it, but I mean that's one of the reasons I'm going to the Omni Drop is it's so much lighter. Where even with this Core XY with the Chimeras on it, 40, 50 millimeters a second is like top speed if you want any kind of decent looking. Where now with that I'm running it 60, 70 millimeters a second without an issue.
Yeah, what are you using for? What's your linear motion on? Is it linear rails or?
Yeah, it's all 2020 on wheels.
Oh, it's on wheels. I see.
Yeah.
Okay, I couldn't tell if you had linear rails on there or wheels.
Well, it's all 2020 on wheels. The original concept. Here's the thing. I don't know if this camera will allow me to do this here.
Not a core expert.
My original idea, way back when I started building this thing, is if you look at like the hypercubes and all of those, they build this big, huge frame.
Yeah.
And then they put all the hardware inside, and you end up with a little bitty printer.
Yeah.
You build this, like the hypercube is what, 400 millimeters cubed or something?
Yeah.
And you end up with like a little 200 millimeter print area.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, there's a better way to do this. So I built a 500 millimeter cube with a close to 400 millimeter print area, actually over 400 if I got a bed for it, by taking all the parts I could and putting them outside the frame. Everything, if you look, the only thing inside the frame are these two towers.
Right.
Which I couldn't figure out. I had them outside, but they weren't attaching so well. And when I tension them, they'd bend over, and they're actually kind of undersized even still, especially for the amount of tension I put on them.
I like how you have your belt. I like how you
what?
I like the belt pulley, like when you were aligning the belts, like just because like on mine I have to shim them to make the belts right, and you just have to tap your brackets up and down, right?
Yep, that's it. They're just sliding on 2020. This is an extra piece of 2020 sticking up and bolted to the side of it.
Yeah, that makes
sense. The original idea, I had a plastic printed tower. That was the other thing. I wanted to do as much printing as possible. That's just dumb. Core XY, you want as minimal printing as possible.
Right.
It's nice to be able to print the parts, and there's a lot of them out there. If you type in Core XY and Thingiverse, you get 1 million of them where like all the corner brackets are printed and stuff.
Yeah.
Mine are all attached with aluminum, and then I add 3D printing on top sometimes.
Right.
Corner brackets now are aluminum. These are the only ones that aren't because this is new. But yeah, this was the best concept I came up with. Replacing the printed one with these just made the whole thing so much better. Yeah. The only problem I have now really is the Z adjustment. I went with one motor with this whole contraption of belts. I don't know. Can I show it?
Oh, yeah, for your Z?
Yeah, for my Z.
Oh, I've seen that before, yeah.
And it's just one belt. It's one belt. It's all tensionable. It goes out to both. Keeps everything parallel. My carriage is kind of heavy. It's like 2 squares of 2020 because I have a 2020 actual carriage.
Mm-hmm.
Rides on the belts. But then there's another 2020 that you can't see, but it's actually the bed is bolted to another 2020 frame.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps it really, really flat. I flattened the 2020 and then screwed the bed right to it. So it's still adjustable, but you carry a lot of weight. And I think it's a little too much for the motor.
Do you have is it like a milled aluminum plate on it or what?
Yeah, it's actually Folger Tex. They were the cheapest one I could get because at the end of it, I was running out of money.
And it's flat?
Huh?
Pretty flat?
Yeah, well, it's really flat because, again,
You have it bolted on all sides?
I made it flat by literally screwing it right to the 2020. I have a 2020 frame that I flattened and bolted together, and there's actually an I-beam in the middle too, going right down the center of it.
So do you use bed leveling at all or no?
Manual.
Yeah.
I do it all manual.
You don't have a sensor on there or a BL touch or anything?
Nope. Don't need it. I've discovered that everyone said, 300, under 300, you're okay. I found the 300, I can bed level manually with tape. Yeah. I can get it close enough, because I'm using springs. It's on spring. They're spring loaded. I have them high tension, but I got them pretty much clamped all the way down so they're really stiff. Mm-hmm. But the little bit of bubble you get, I can get it flat with boot tape and packing tape. Boot tape is like, now I got to remember. Boot tape is 0.07 and regular clear packing tape is like 0.02. So between the two of them, you can get it within like 1/100th of a millimeter.
Yeah.
Which, I'm sorry, the BL touches and all of those, sure, they go along and they're very accurate. The problem is you're tapping a bunch of spots. What happens if the bow is in between the two spots you're sensing?
Yeah, that's true.
Or halfway and you're hitting. It works. Don't get me wrong. But, if I were going any bigger, and 300 is pushing it. Mm-hmm. The 200s, like putting auto bed leveling on an ender, I'm sorry, it's just boggling a waste to me.
It is.
It's cool, don't get me wrong. Like the Prusias, it's on there, it comes with it. Great. I don't have to wire it or anything.
And it works.
And it works. The thing is you still end up with an out of flat item. And when you're printing stuff like this, like these, my wheel chucks have zero adjustability. There's no adjustment to those. When I print them, they have to be flat and straight and true. Mm-hmm. If I did this with a BL touch, one of these wheels might not touch.
Right.
Because the bed could be out and it'll print it, but the whole unit will be out. So it's no longer square and straight. Or with mine, they're square and straight and they both contact. Because I make them square and straight. Now, there is an advantage. That's one thing I was talking about earlier is these are polycarbonate. So when I tension them, because, again, where I made this, there's no inner wheel here. Most places have a wheel right here. There's no wheel here. This is what the hell is that? What are you watching, some video or something?
No, I was trying to figure out why I was echoing.
Yeah.
Now it's down. So
it may be me.
Ooh, the sunlight. Good Lord.
Yeah. It tensions by taking this one and that one way over there and clamping the whole frame. This center beam is my tensioner. I literally take a big ass bar clamp and I clamp all the way across. Again, not the brightest idea I ever had, but I was trying to make no internal parts. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's interesting. So you got the wheels and the red part, the wheels like sandwiched in there?
Yeah, these are bolted in just like a normal chuck. The thing is when I clamp it down, I set this on here, I put the two on, I slide them together, and then there's a little holder right here. You can't see, but there's a little spot right here where my thumb is on both sides. And I take a big long bar clamp and I clamp it. Yeah. Then I tighten all the stuff up. So the whole thing is clamped frame to frame.
Could you enclose it though if you wanted to?
No. You could, but everything is outside. Power supply, boards, everything is outside. I would have to move all this stuff either underneath, or if I was going to enclose it, it would almost be easier in that sense because all the stuff already is outside and you don't have to worry about the heat. Mm-hmm. The only major problem is this has to hang out, this like 80 millimeters. Does
it have to hang out that far though?
Close.
Yeah.
Because of the way this is. And I've tried shortening this and it loses its holding power. It kind of flexes. Now again, with the polycarbonate, there's a little bit of flex with the polycarbonate. So even with, my method of leveling the bed, it's still not, we're 3D printing here. It's still not absolutely perfect, but when I clamp it with the polycarbonate has enough flex that it makes up that little bit of difference that, even my manual bed leveling just can't compensate for.
Is that's Duet too, right?
It's not anymore. I got rid of the Duet.
What do you got now?
It's just an MKS. Not MKS. It's the SKR or 1.4.
Why'd you get rid of Duet?
I don't want to say I don't like it because it's.
Are you running rep firmware on the SKR or no?
Yeah. No. That's one thing I didn't like, and I was okay with it until they came out with the newest one, and I tried to update, and it just became a nightmare. And I'll tell you,
pins and all that shit.
I don't know if it's the slicer, if it's the actual firmware, or it's just my method of setting my slicers. I get way better quality prints out of this with the a regular Marlin setup on it than I ever did with the rip wrap. I never got the same quality. If I sliced everything the same, and I used to go through, and the one thing I always check, like Idea Maker, Cura, Bruiser Slicer, they all have a selection in there that says rip wrap firmware when you're first setting up the printer. And I've tried the Duet with both the rip wrap selection and with Marlin, and it just never got as clean of a print out of them. I don't know why. I don't know if it reads the G code different. It just, and I know people do, but I don't feel they're,
it's super dependent on the config file. If you got all the acceleration and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like in Marlin, like in Prusa Slicer, you can have your firmware set at whatever you want, but then the firmware detunes it or sets it exactly where you want it. Whereas in rep wrap and like Prusa Slicer, you can't do that. It's all set in the whatever you have in your config. If you have 10,000 acceleration, that's what it's going to use. So
now you can override it, but you got to do it more manually.
Right. Yeah. You got to put it like in the starting G code or whatever.
The other thing is back in the day, the Duet was the quietest. Well, I'm sorry. This thing with the 2209s on it or the 2208s, I had 2208s in it too. They're way quieter than them 2660s are.
Well, I don't think my Duets are not quiet at all compared to like even the Nancy board from Prusa is way quieter than the Duet by a mile.
Yep.
Dude, the Duets.
I don't know why they should be. I mean, the 2206 should be a quiet movement. It just never is. And I went through literally like months of adjusting. And the rip wrap firmware restricts your adjustment so much. You can adjust to like 256, steps, but it doesn't make it quieter. It just makes it wimpy.
Yeah.
And they outright say that. They say the best thing to do with the rip wrap firmware on the Duet is to use 16 micro stepping and then use the integrated, which I absolutely agree with. If you want quiet, that's the quietest setting you can get. If you want super accurate, go up to 128, 256, whatever it is.
I read somewhere that the Duet too, because there was somebody asking how do you switch, like on the Prusa, you can switch from stealth chop to normal mode. Yeah, and so that the Duet is in permanent. It comes, you can change it, but it comes permanently in stealth chop mode to try to quiet it down. But even then, that thing is
far from the quietest.
Yeah.
And it wasn't extremely loud. And when I first got it, oh my God, it was way quieter than anything. I had all crappy boards, with what are they, 4890 or 4988s or whatever the hell. I mean, they were just whiny, and you put the Duet back on there when it originally came out, when I first got it and put it on here. Oh my God, was it quiet in comparison to those.
Right.
But today, 2208s, 2209s, they are the bomb if you want silent. And again, that's my bed. I want quiet.
And you can sleep with it in there?
I still can't sleep with it because honestly, what bothers me the most when I'm trying to sleep, and I've done it a few times, it's got nothing to do with the printer noise. It's when the spool moves.
Oh yeah.
It's like and all of a sudden you hear that and you're like, what's wrong? You hear the spool moving, you think it's something went wrong, and it instantly wakes me up. I'm like, oh no. And it was just the spool unwinding.
You ought to hear that the Artemis going, and it's not a loud printer by any means, but when you get it moving good, I mean, I can hear it everywhere in the house. When it makes its travel movements, it's so loud.
Yeah, when I had the duet in this, I could hear this in the basement.
Yeah,
I can barely hear this thing now going faster, printing faster. I can barely hear this thing in the kitchen, which is right below this closet.
right.
You know, I can hear it because I'm listening for it, but if I'm doing anything and not paying attention, you don't notice it.
Right.
It is way quieter. The duet is just not. I have nothing against duet. Like if I were gonna build a rail core, definitely duet. If I was gonna do all the fancy tool changers, no question about it, duet. To be honest, I don't think the SKR boards are the bomb. I think they're kind of cheap pieces of crap. I've blown up 2 of them now, and everyone can laugh and make fun of me. Neither one of them was my fault. They've replaced, SKR Big Tree Tech has come out and said it wasn't my fault and replaced both of them already.
Yeah.
And the good thing is, a lot of people beat on SKR or Big Tree Tech. Every time I've had a problem, they're just like, "Did you buy it on Amazon?" "Yeah." "Just buy a new one. Send us the invoice. We'll reimburse you."
Really?
And they did both times, like instantly. Within an hour of me sending them a copy of the receipt, they paid for them. And not only did they pay for the first one, but they paid because it was a whole order. I sent them the original order receipt.
Yeah.
They credited me the stepper drivers, like the whole order, not just.
Really?
I mean, the board was what, $30 or $35? Because actually the first one I bought on a Good Friday or not good Black Friday sale.
Yeah.
So I got a little cheaper, and I got the drivers and I don't know, it was half a dozen other things. The board was like $22 or $23, and they credited me like $70. Everything I bought in that board, they paid for. So I got all new drivers, I got parts. I mean, you can't. Is their service great in the sense of I don't know what the hell I'm doing, I need to ask questions? No. When it comes to replacing a bad board, yes. Big Tech will replace it in a heartbeat.
I'm pretty interested in the idea, the concept that they can put duet or rep wrap firmware on their boards. I think that's cool. That gives another option, a cheaper option.
Well, any 32-bit board in reality. I mean, rip wrap firmware was never made for the duet.
Yeah.
Duet took it over, just like Prusa Slice. Prusa took over the old Slick 3R / Slicer.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how that worked out. They just said, "Hey, this is a cool firmware. We're gonna, take it and make a new branch of our own for it and make it for our boards because we like the G-code editing of the firmware setting." And again, people think you can edit the firmware with G-code, or that the firmware is G-code. The firmware is not G-code. Firmware settings are G-code.
Yeah.
It's very easy to change your settings, and it is, and I like that.
Yeah.
A smashing concept. I would like to see Marlin be able to do that to some extent easier than it is.
It's cool if you can do, if you, I mean, there's people that spend, sometimes I go on GitHub and I'll download a macro and I'm like, holy shit, how did you even think of this? Like,
yeah,
just super smart. But I personally I have not made a macro that's like that. I mean, but some people can make these crazy long, complicated. I mean, the stuff that it can do is pretty impressive. But the thing I don't like about Duet, the only thing I don't like about Duet is when I read their tutorials and their forums. It's like you have to be a rocket scientist to understand them. They're like, that guy David Crockett. He talks at a whole nother level, and I have to go like, what is he talking about? Like, I don't even know what he's talking about.
When I first did it, they were still fairly new. I mean, I bought this thing. That's when I started building it. It was when the Duet 2 came out.
Yeah.
And I was hedging and hollering. I didn't want to spend it was $190 at the time to get one.
Yeah.
It was 170 something plus shipping. No one in the States had it yet. And I ordered it, and I really didn't want to. I was like, I don't need it. I don't need all the features. It's overpriced. Even then, you could get a regular, back then you could get a MKS Gen L kind of thing for half the money. And actually, I bought an MKS Gen SL, the original 32-bit board MKS.
Yeah.
But back then, there was no Marlin 2.0, and you couldn't port it. You had to run SmoothieWare on it, which I didn't know. And
Right.
I never even installed that. Once I figured out, I didn't know enough about smoothie wear, and I couldn't figure it out. I went, and then I got to Duet, and I'll tell you what, when I first was setting it up, they were extremely helpful. That's the other thing. The guys in the Duet, if you go into forums, yeah, there's usually like a 12-hour delay to a question because, they're 8 hours ahead of us. So usually by the time I ask a question, it's like midnight. So you got to wait until one of them is up to respond.
Right.
Usually the next day you get a response. But, oh, my God, some of the responses were like, I literally had to write back and say, what do you mean by all of this? Can you stupefy it for me? Because I'm an idiot and don't get it.
Yeah.
And they're just, I agree with you. They're very rocket scientist-y. Now, I will say, whoever rewrote their manuals, they have some new manuals, kind of dumbed it down pretty good for the normal everyday guy.
Well, I think that's part of the problem is a lot of people get in there and they don't understand it. Like I certainly didn't. I was like, what the hell are they talking about?
And the other thing I didn't like is the way they side reference constantly. Like if you're reading a section, like when I first started doing linear advance, they call it something else, pressure. They were like, if you have this, do this. But then they'd tell you. They wouldn't say go over to here. So you're like, everything's split up so much because it's like, here's one thing, and you got to do this, this, and this for this board, and this, and this for this board, and this, and this for this board. And then when you're all done with that, here's the next step for this board, and this board. And it was just like, it was like hunting and pecking and searching, trying to find the 4 paragraphs I needed out of the 10 pages.
It is true. That is hard. It's not easy to find what you need sometimes.
They were covering so much information for different board, only the 2 boards at the time, but they had like 4 or 5 different firmwares that they were using.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were still, when I started, it was 1.6, 1.7, 1.8, and then oh my God, going up to 2.0 firmware was not easy. You basically had to wipe the board,
right,
reinstall it. 2.0 is still, I think, the best. 3.0, if you're using a Wi-Fi, a Duet Wi-Fi 2, do not use 3.0. There's no need for it.
I went to 3 on the rail core, but mainly what they do is like, see, before they had, like I bought their magnetic filament sensor, which is a whole nother.
What's up, Vince?
A whole nother issue. They're filament sensors, and this just doesn't work for crap. But anyways, I thought some of the issue is that I needed to update it. So I moved to RepRap 3 on the rail core to try to get the filament sensor to work better. And oh my God,
it was a nightmare. And I
was up to like 7 a.m. basically trying to.
It took me off and I was running again.
I mean, there was flashlights trying to figure out what pin it was on, and
yeah, you have to identify all the pins and everything directly now. 3. Now I get 3 is 4.3, and they ported it to 2. And honestly, on the rail core, it's kind of, you almost want it because you do have more control because you have that 3 motor bed leveling, right?
Yeah, the G32. It's but I mean, again, you don't use it very often. So
no, you don't. The 3 was just, it became 3 is great for the Duet 3 on like a tool changer. You want 3, but I'm not doing a tool changer because I'm not dumb enough to think I'm that smart. If that makes sense.
Well, you could.
I'm not so dumb that I think I'm smart. I know.
Supposedly you can do it on there, but I haven't seen anybody do it. Not yet, anyway.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I don't know. It's I gotta tighten the belts on this. I gotta tension them up and clamp them down. I need some. I gotta put this out of the way because I gotta get in here. Actually, no, they're purple. I have purple ones right here. I have special purple tie wraps for the purple printer.
Yeah.
So I got to tighten these. And again, because these are polycarbonate, and you can't really see it, but these things right here, polycarbonate. When I tension the belts, they actually have enough give that it'll kick the gantry out. So as I tension it, I have to square it. And make sure my tensions are correct. So let's do it that way. So I actually want to pull it this way first. Trying to figure out which one's tighter. Because if I tension this one first and get it square, when I tension this one, it'll go back out of square. So if I tension this one first, it's going to pitch it more out of square.
Quiet, you.
It's almost too tight. It's going to get tighter when I tension the other one. So let it back a tooth. And I don't know if you can see what I'm actually doing here, but I'm using the actual teeth as an adjuster. And I got that pretty tight now. Man, it's freaking tight.
How are your belts? Are they zip tied together?
Yeah. But believe it or not, using these stupid clamps works really well. As long as you clamp enough of the face, the tension's on the tooth. And when you clamp the tooth together, there's no tension on the clip other than to keep the teeth together.
Right.
Now, if I really, really yank on it, yeah, they'll pop. But once I get it to the tension, then I put one, and I left them long so I can yank on them. And I put one zip tie on and make sure it meets the teeth together. And then tension the other one back to square. And when I square it, I did the wrong one, didn't I? Did I? Come on, get under the wheels. And I need my glasses because I can't see. Oop, I did the right one. Now I need to tension the bottom one, which I wish I could have done the top one first because it's in the way. But believe it or not, where the teeth go through the carriage right here, in this carriage, you can hear it click. And it gives me like accurate adjustments, if that makes sense. It's not the best design. One of these days I will design some kind of adjustable tensioner where I can just like turn a screw. But you know what? For now, it just works.
So you built that from scratch?
Yep, 100%. This carriage even is mine / Barry's design.
Barry?
Yeah, RCC. He made that for me.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, because I originally had like open builds carriage, but it was really it worked, but it was kind of hodgepodgey, and you had to put a plastic mount in between, and made the whole carriage, made the head shift out even farther, and more weight, on it. Blah blah blah. And I was joking around with him one night on a stream. I said, "Dude, if I designed this really simple carriage to mount the Hemera to, because originally it was Hemera, directly to it, and get rid of all my plastic printed mounting crap, it brings the profile in closer to the 2020, keeps everything more stable, blah, blah, blah. How many millions would you charge me to print one?" I said, "I don't know. Send me a design. We'll see." And the next thing I know, the next day is like, "Send me your address." I'm like, "Okay." And then I had it. And he did the original one for the other printer. And he just sent it to me. And then I was joking around again and said, "Dude, I'm getting another one. You want to do one for this one?" He's like, "Sure. Just don't be in a rush," because he does them out of scrap material.
Yeah.
When he does a run, if he has a little chunk left over, he's like, "Okay, I can put that in the, in the whatever, the layout print, cut system, and just cut it out of the corner while I'm running somebody else's junk." Next thing you know, I took about a month to get this one. because I had to wait until he had an opening for it. But yeah, he made them both, and they're almost exactly the same. I modified this one a little bit just for wheel alignment issues. I gotta loosen this one because this is a little too tight. Because when I tension that one, it tightened that one. See, now with the rail core, how do you actually adjust your belts?
You do it by pulling the motors back. So they have a design where you start on the Y motor, and then you kind of just lay everything in place. And they have tensioners built into it, but you kind of you kind of use that for fine adjustment. But to do the first pass, you have to buy 1, 2, 3 blocks, the machining blocks.
Yeah.
And you basically pinch the carriage, but you pinch the block between the carriage and the back rail with a clamp, and then you basically pull the X motor back until the carriage naturally touches the other 1, 2, 3 block, and then you kind of just keep fiddling with it until the gap is even on both sides. Technically, you don't clamp anything in place. You just you clamp the blocks there for reference, and then
you're basically taking your wheel here, your motor, and sliding it back and forth to tension.
Right. So one side you put there, and then the next side you got to tension the belt to get it to it, and then I use feeler gauges to make the gap even between the two 1, 2, 3 blocks. So it's not too bad. I'll tell you what, when I first got that printer, because it came with the thanks to UPS, it came with the belts off, and I had no idea I've never done anything with a Core XY. I mean, now I'm an expert, but back then I wasn't. So,
this was a dumb project for me too. I had never done a Core XY.
Yeah.
When I first did this, the Core XY was still very, very new. I mean,
right.
It's kind of gotten popular now, but even the Hypercube was still in its infancy, and he was still modifying stuff from when I did it. And
right.
God, that was the dumbest thing I ever did.
I don't get I'm not a big fan of the. I mean, there was a minute I thought about maybe building one of those, but I don't know.
The Hypercube?
Yeah.
I think the Hypercube in its time was a great idea. I still think it's a decent concept. Like anything that the modern, modifications and modern stuff has made better options.
Yeah.
I still think I would like to build one if I were going to build another Core XY. I think I'd still like to build one for nostalgia.
Mm-hmm.
But in all reality, taking another printer, even if it's not Core XY, and modifying it to my desires is probably the best option for a Core XY. Yeah. Although I don't know if you've seen that ELF printer.
The what?
The ELF. It's a company called Creativity, not Creality. Creativity makes it, and it looks like a really good starter Core XY.
Huh? I've never heard of it.
Yeah, a lot of people haven't. They're fairly new and kind of small. It's not cheap. It's not expensive, but everything I've seen on it, it looks like a starter. I don't think it's perfect. I think the extruders, everyone's using like kind of Creality or the TiVo version of the extruders now.
Yeah.
I hate the TiVo one because of the way the airflow is. People don't get it. The airflow on that TiVo freaking hot end is it's pushing the air back down onto the print.
Well, it does look like that.
It flows out the back. Well, it can't flow out the back because the 2020 extrusion's behind it in the back. So it's hitting that 2020 extrusion and flowing away.
That does.
It's like that V-shaped, it's an enclosed hot end like the Creality basic everyday hot end, but it's like V-shaped. And it has the two fans that have no air ducts on them. They just blow on the print head. And that part actually seems to work pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
But the hot end cooling fan blows on the hot end, which is, you know, a Creality style flat fin hot end with the carriage behind it. And there's a knock in the carriage, and everyone's like, oh, the air flows right out. But if you look at it, the 2020 extrusion's right behind the hot end.
Right.
So it can't flow through it because it just hits the 2020 extrusion and goes up or down. And that V-shaped carriage that they put on it is directing it down right onto the print.
Right.
So if you're trying to print like PETGs and ABSs and stuff, you're going to have airflow on your print that you don't want. Now, for PLA and crap, who gives a crap?
I just looked that printer up. I've never seen that before. It kind of looks like a Sapphire Pro a little bit.
Yeah, but it's better. I mean, if you look at it, it's just minimal stuff here and there. But there's a lot of stuff. And again, I would use it as a base to start with. If I were to buy it, I'd probably build it and leave it alone for like a couple of months and play with it stock and decide what I wanted to upgrade. But
in that the rails are upside down, the linear rails.
Yeah, that doesn't matter as much as people think.
You'd think it'd be wear the bearings faster, wouldn't it?
I won't get into that. I don't think linear rails is the end all be all.
Yeah, well, I don't.
They're nice. Don't get me wrong.
I don't know if you've ever seen this, Tom, but this Artemis, you know, when they built these originally, they all had linear rails, and those rails are like, I don't know, 800 millimeters tall, maybe 1,000 millimeters tall. The gantry pieces there, and mine was one of the first ones that didn't have linear rails. He actually went away from linear rails.
Yeah.
And he asked me if I wanted linear rails or not when I bought it. And I said, yeah, I want linear rails because I thought, you know, they were the best. Well, come to find out, those linear rails are a pain in the ass, to manage and take care of. But
maintenance on a linear rail, they are more accurate, brand new.
I'll show you this. You probably, I don't know if you've ever seen anything like this before, but let me take one of these caps off. Have you seen these carriages?
Yeah, I've seen those. Those are really nice.
Yeah, but if you look on this side, do you see the spring? There's like a spring right there.
I can't see it, but yeah. Hang on. Let me
spring right here. I can't get any closer to it, but yeah, that spring. Let me see if I can point at it right here. And he's got this little lever that tensions this wheel perfectly. I mean, this printer has thousands of hours on it, and I've never touched these wheels. I mean, they're clean as a whistle, too.
So they're using a spring instead of an eccentric nut to keep the tension even.
Well, no, it's still got so these are eccentric, right? You can see that it's kind of off center, off axis.
Yeah.
So these two are opposing eccentrics, and then they got the spring between them that pulls down on them and just puts just enough tension on them so that they're perfect in the rail. I mean, it is a super smart idea. You can buy these from him. I mean, he sells these carts individually on the website. So
yeah, they're ridiculously pricey though.
Are they? I don't think they're that bad, are they? I mean, compared to what though?
For me,
yeah.
For me, like I would not have this carriage on this thing that is on it.
Yeah.
The carriage holding this extruder on, if he hadn't built it, I'd just be using a open builds, whatever carriage that I had cut and fit with 3D printed brackets and mountings and and that's the problem is you have the carriage. The open builds carriages are awesome, but then you have to put minimum of 5 millimeters of plastic and then your extruder. And where I want a direct drive, which is not really a good idea on a Core XY because it's heavy, you have even more weight out. And I'm only using the 2020, so the whole thing starts doing this.
Yeah.
It starts freaking drooping because of the whole. You just can't keep it straight. Because the only other thing I've been thinking about doing, if you look, I actually started with the last rebuild. I'm putting longer screws on it. And I think I'm going to go even longer. And I'm actually going to put a plate on the back side. Because I think even with the aluminum, I have a feeling the screws are starting to do this.
Yeah.
Where if I put a plate on the backside, even if it's printed, it can help keep the screws from twisting, especially on the eccentric nut ones. They just don't. There's not enough face there with the eccentric nut to hold it square and straight in there. It's starting to pitch, and it's minor. It's very, very minor, and it works fine. But I'm just one of those. If I see something that's wrong, I'm just like, how can I fix that?
I'm trying to look up to see how many. I haven't really seen how much these carts are, but I'll tell you, if I was building
I think they're like 100 or 120 bucks a piece. I know they've got their plastic ones because it's See Me CNC, right?
Yeah, well, the plastic ones are for I mean,
they're like 80 bucks or something. The last time I looked, it was something.
He makes Yeah, he makes all that stuff in house. He has an installer.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with his cost, other than I simply can't afford it.
$69 for one of them.
For the aluminum ones, that's pretty cheap. The problem is the mount is pretty much strictly their mount, and you can't just like modify it to mount like a hot end to it.
Yeah, I mean it wouldn't be that hard to mount a hot end. It's got drilled and tapped holes in it.
Yeah, but they're in their location to hold your arms, not my hot end kind of thing.
Yeah, I actually don't know how you would mount anything.
You have to build a plate, which sticks everything out farther.
Yeah, you have to build a carriage plate for it, probably.
Yeah, which again is not a big deal,
right?
But it's just more width, less printable area. You know, you're losing that printable area because now the whole extruder is out there. What's up, Mike? Mike and Mike. I didn't even see the other mic pop in. I don't know. Again, when I was building this, it was all about condensing everything or putting it outside. So inside that 500 millimeter square. I mean, the ultimate concept would be a 500 millimeter frame that you can print 499.99% of inside that frame. Obviously, never going to happen because you have the actual extruder inside there. And I have yet to figure out a way where I can move the extruder up and above and still have it catch the plate. Otherwise, I'd probably do it.
See Me CNC for $7,500 has a 2.1 meter build height and a 500 millimeter wide plate.
Really?
So what is that?
So it's freaking $7,000 though. That's like.
And really, for them, there's no difference in the equipment other than the 3 uprights are bigger, you know? And I'm sure shipping ain't fun. Shipping's probably not easy.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I have nothing against See Me CNC. I like it. I'm glad they're here. They're just not in my budget.
Yeah.
Like a Prusa is not in my budget. Would I love one? Sure. Would I take one? Sure.
Well, I wanted a Delta because I like the the same thing everybody likes, but and even this, like the one, he's $7,000 and he's got a 3 meter tall print volume. But the problem I have with this printer, and I have done everything I can think of to try to fix it, is that when you're pushing filament through an 830 millimeter Bowden tube, I mean. They had a single.
Reason I went direct drive with this.
Yeah,
they had a 100 millimeter Bowden tube going from the extruder to the head with a BMG.
Yeah,
I was either getting strain because I couldn't retract it enough, or I was constantly clogging the head because I was over retracting and you're pulling the hot filament up into the cold zone. And
they had the EZR extruders. This came with 2 EZR extruders, right? Because it's dual whatever.
Yeah.
And it right from the gate, you try to print it like, you buy a Delta because you think it can print fast. And so my problem is I get it like at 60 millimeters a second, which is not even close to fast in most cases. And the extruder started going, it starts skipping steps, and I cranked the voltage up. I cranked the jerk and acceleration up. I could never get it to stop doing that unless you're printing at 45 millimeters a second. Thing prints amazing. So I finally put I put both Vontex on both sides and Capricorn tube and yada, yada, yada. And that helped a little bit. But now when you try to print it fast, it will push that Bowden tube out. I just don't know when it'll happen. At some point during a long print, it'll push that tube out and ruin
I've had that happen on this.
And they don't have filament sensors. A printer this big does not have a filament sensor. It just, that, in my opinion, for the price, they should have had.
That wasn't a thing back then. Filament sensors were, and it's such a stupidly simple concept, but it wasn't a thing back then.
You know what I mean? I mean, I bought it in 2018, so
it's about like filament sensing started hitting them. You know,
and even at that, even then, it was, I think I paid $2,400 for it, and then 3 months later, I get a notification that he refunded me $600.
Why?
Because he lowered his price.
Oh, well, that's cool.
I know, but I mean, I was like, dude, I don't expect that. I mean, nice of him, but I was surprised that they did that for people that just bought them. So I don't know. I mean, I guess it speaks a lot about him.
Months and reimburse people. I'm assuming people have years. Yeah.
I mean, if it were a week or something, I could understand. But I mean, I had it for 3 months. So, shit happens. But
no, but that's, I mean, I like CNC. I like the company. I like everything. It's just out of my price range.
The machine itself is the best built printer I have by far. I mean, it is built. I mean, everything is beautifully done. But yeah,
it's kind of like Lulz bots. They were actually fairly nice printers. They had to follow. And that's part of what makes CNC so expensive, is they have to follow, they're not like China. They have to follow all the U.S. safety and electrical. It's all UL listed and all that crap.
Yeah.
So they have to do extras that the Chinese cheapo enders don't.
Right.
But, yeah.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, if anything else, I like watching it. When I first got it, I thought for a printer this big, it should have a dual, extruder. It should have a filament sensor, and it should have had a flex plate from the factory. But CNC is kind of stuck in his ways, and so he does, he doesn't take a lot of suggestions, is my understanding. But like, they all have glass beds.
Yeah. See, I hate glass.
Well,
I did it. It works. I got no problem with people using it. It's just the click, snap, it's just so easy.
Yeah. Well, I put a Wham Bam on it, and I don't know. From the factory, one of the reasons he uses glass because it's sitting on an aluminum. He calls it an aluminum spreader plate. It's like this thick aluminum, right?
Yeah. And it spreads the heat out more.
Yeah. But the bed is incredibly flat, right? So, and it's square in the frame. And so when you use the printer stock, it works great. I put a Wham Bam on there, and then I had to start doing bed probing every print, and it just wasn't worth it, So on this printer, and only this printer, I put on glass. But the reason I like having glass is because if there's something you want it to look really nice, that finish off of glass is like nothing else. So.
Well, PEI, a brand new sheet of PEI, gives you a similar finish.
Yeah, you just can't. I mean, glass just does its own little thing. The thing that I found that I love is this stuff, the nanopolymer.
Yeah,
this stuff is awesome, man.
I've never had to use it because I've never had. If something doesn't stick to my bed, it's usually because I did something. Not that I need to. Something's wrong.
Yeah.
I either did something like I do now and not forget, like, even though I just did this, I'm still going to reset my bed height. Because that's the other thing I put on all my printers. I do not go around to all four corners to set my bed height. I have, I don't know if I can see it. Here you go. Right here. A height adjuster. Once I level and square the bed, I level and square. I don't care about how close my nozzle is or any of that. I trim the bed to the frame.
Yeah.
Then I set the height manually by spinning the wheel. And everyone's like, well, what if, where you made it a level, if I go from my blue tape to the PEI or to, the TH3D or build tech, you're going to have to redo all 4 screws. No, all I have to do is adjust this one thing. And I've gotten it down now where I know a half a turn would bring me up to blue tape. 2 turns down brings me to build tech. I mean,
Is that the purple thing right there?
This right here. I don't know if you can actually see it. This is just holding the tube for the filament.
Yeah.
That's all it does. It's just a tube stop. But there's a little adjuster right here.
Yeah, I see that. A little purple wheel.
Yeah. And it's just a screw, and I glue a little printed cap on it so it's bigger and it's easier to grab and adjust.
And what does that do?
It just adjusts my height. Here's my end stop right here.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see. It hits your end
So
stop.
if I need to adjust the height, I just spin this thing. Now, again, I very seldom ever touch it. But why? I mean, even the enders. It's such a stupidly simple concept. Why are they every time playing with all 4? You should trim the bed, get it flat. Don't worry about your actual height yet. Just get it flat to the frame. Then use a single adjuster on the end stop to set the nozzle height.
Yeah.
I don't know why I've been saying this since the beginning. Every single printer I've ever built has that on it because it's just a stupidly simple concept.
Yeah.
Why sit there? Oh my God, you got it a little too high. Now you get it all level, but it's not quite the right height to the nozzle. Now they're going around adjusting all 4 and screwing up your level. Why?
It is the number one thing I see on Facebook. Like I kind of quit going on Facebook, but the number one thing I see is I'm trying to install this BL Touch, and they're always enders, and the other one is a Sidewinder. And the Sidewinders, every single post, you go in there, it's maddening, man. It just drives me nuts. I go in there, they go, I don't think my bed's flat. It's like, yeah, they don't come with flat beds. Not one artillery Sidewinder has come with a flat bed. And they all try to put that BL Touch on it, and they're like, I can't get it to work, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, my God. Just level the stupid bed. Because when that bed's bowed, that BL Touch isn't doing much for you, honestly. I mean, I had one on mine. It didn't do anything. In the end, I ended up just setting it and leaving it. My son has one. He hasn't adjusted the bed in months. I
don't adjust the beds, the trimming of the bed at all. I adjust the height because I'm constantly, PEI. I have another sheet that Pet Fang dude Dave sent me that I'm going to try on this. And they're all, they're different thicknesses, but that's all I got to do is just set the height. I bring it to the center where it is now. I home it. I do the paper thing. Boom, done. I don't have to do all 4 corners ever again.
Right. And even the Prusa, though, even with their sensor and how good they're leveling, they have the best. They have the best ABL, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, or macro, whatever. Theirs goes so fast. It goes. I mean, it's so fast, and it works so good. But even them, you if you go from the textured plate to a PEI, you have to change the setting. You can't. It won't do it on its own. You have to manually change the Z offset. Yeah. But that printer does need an ABL because those PCBs are, it's bolted down about. I think it has like 20 screws in it or something. But that's yeah, it's like this. When you run a ruler on it, it is not flat. I mean, it is not.
That's the other thing is I flatten it, and I think I haven't gotten the PCB, and everyone says you can't do it, but I flatten it with blue tape.
Oh,
that's how bad that bed's out.
That's a good idea, but that's how Wham Bam.
Everyone's like, "Oh, well, you're losing your heat." Well, for one, the magnet sheet does way more insulation than that blue tape, and so does the fucking sheet of PEI. Yeah. There's more thickness in this PEI than I have there in blue tape. There's literally 1 layer of blue tape, and a couple places there's 2 layers of clear tape, and that's it. That's all you should ever. If it's more than that, I literally take my knee and go and flatten it out. Because if it's more than that, that's all you need to do. And that's how I flatten my beds.
You don't ever have that come up off the magnet though?
No.
No.
Never. I've been thinking about redoing it because the one thing I have noticed is it's been like that for like a year and a half, 2 years now. Mm-hmm. Over time with the magnet, where this is like a soft, rubbery, car magnet, kind of, it's a little better than a car magnet, but simple concept.
Right.
As you magnetize it and the build plate is on it, it actually blows out over a year or so because the blue tape slowly sinks down into it. It gets compressed. The magnet itself is starting to compress under the weight of this pulling the blue tape down into it.
Right.
And slightly, and again, it's so minor, I'm not going to bother, but I've been almost thinking about doing it because everyone's like, "Oh, you can't do that. You can't do that." Blah blah blah. And I keep going.
What's the print volume on? Is it 300 by 300?
It is right now. It can actually go bigger. I just don't have a bed for it.
Yeah,
I could not afford a bigger bed. At the time, this was the Folger Tech when they were still existing. So I don't know if you realize, but Folger Tech closed their doors.
Somebody told me that. I mean, God, they were still coming out with printers like a couple months ago.
It was about a year ago they came out with the FT6 and had limited rollout of that. And then COVID hit and it just wiped them out.
That was the one that kind of looked like Glenn's printer, right? The FT6. It was a big, long thing.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, yes. Yeah.
I wonder what they're doing with all their printer stuff.
Yeah, it looked very similar to that, and it was huge. Chris Riley has one, and I don't think he ever got it running right.
Oh, he does have one, doesn't he? He built it from frame.
He built one. The FT6 is just a frame. It's a frame and carriage. There's no... Now, I think you can get it with an extruder, and you can get it, couple, 3 different kits. But the base kit for $799 was just a frame. It was a frame with the head carriage, no extruders, no boards, no. It was the belts, the pulleys, and the frame.
That sucks because they had a lot of value for their price. Honestly, like they were really. I mean, they were base kits, like you said, but it seemed to me I almost bought some of the Core XY stuff a million times because I thought, and they were always huge. You get big ass ones.
The FT5 is what made them. Yeah, they had an i3 like everyone else. That was an absolute piece of junk. It was overpriced. It was like $400. It was overpriced. It was designed terribly. But the FT5 made them because it was a U.S. company with a box frame. I almost bought one to start this whole project, and that's what a lot of people.
Yeah, I almost bought one too.
$499 for the box frame with a 300. It was 350 squared. Build volume.
You can't compete with China, man. You can get full printer kits for that. From LA.
Yeah, well, the FT5 was a full printer for $500. Now, it was kind of a crappy. The board was garbage. The extruder was garbage. But it was it was equivalent to like the CR10.
Yeah, Shane Fugatek's got one.
Yeah,
and he loves it.
That's what started his channel.
Yeah,
when he got that. Actually, he started with a G-Tech piece of junk but then he got the FT5, and that's what really made his channel. Because I was watching him, hanging out with him before he even got the FT5, but that's when he went from like 100 followers to a couple thousand. Because the FT5 back in the day was, that was it, man. That was the first real box frame printer you could buy that big. It was as big or bigger than a CR10. Matter of fact, I think the FT5 came out before the CR10. I'm not positive.
Yeah.
It was like the first really big printer, and it was a U.S. company. That is U.S. made because they import everything. There's absolutely nothing on it U.S. made.
Oh, it is not?
No, there's nothing U.S. made on it. He's an importer. Just like Tim TH3D, they don't make anything in the house except for 3D printed stuff. But, it's decent quality. But the FT5 was a good base printer to start with. A lot of people were like, oh, build it, leave it stock, and run it. Yeah, it needed a part cooling to start with.
Yeah, it didn't come with
an ABS printer.
Right.
It wasn't really designed to be a PLA PETG printer. It was designed strictly to be an ABS printer. Had no part cooling, had a bunch of stuff missing, had an old ramps board with the where you literally had to put the daughter card on it to get the Adreno working and all that crap. I do think the FT52 came out later, but it had a couple of little things. It had plywood corner brackets, which were
right. And melamine.
Everyone did was replace those with nice aluminum ones.
Yeah.
And then he went to that laminated crap because it was cheaper. It was like a layer of aluminum, layer of acrylic, and then layer of aluminum again. And there's a name for it. I can't remember what it is. Those are actually pretty nice, but you can still over torque it and crack it.
Yeah, the melamine.
Yeah. Well, it's not really melamine. It's aluminum. It had 2 layers of aluminum with acrylic on it in between. It was, a plywoody kind of sandwich of the 3 materials. But it was pretty strong. But if you torque the screw down, and you wouldn't know it because the aluminum was on the outside, if I remember correctly. I never actually played with one. I just heard people bitching about them.
Yeah.
You could crack the acrylic in between the 2 sandwiches of aluminum, not even know it.
Yeah.
Unless you looked really close, you could see the crack coming out.
Right.
But it was still better than the plywood. Or they had particle board at first. But again, for $500, you get a U.S.-based. Granted, it was all Chinese parts, but it was still sold and designed and built in the U.S. for $500.
Right.
A 300 cube printer, which was unheard of back then.
Right. It's pretty interesting. I was looking at AliExpress. They have a Trudon Core XY. It says inspired by Voron design.
Yeah.
$1,900 on AliExpress.
See, that's the other thing. Everyone's ranting and raving about the Voron. Now,
I'm not.
If I'm going to build another printer, I can tell you right now, learning what I have about Core XY, I will probably never build another Core XY printer. There's just way too many twitchy, glitchy things with Core XY.
Yeah.
For one, the biggest thing I've discovered, and I know a lot of these cheaper ones don't have them lined up right. Again, the biggest thing, if this belt coming up, this is your key right here. This tower. If these belts don't go straight, and I mean dead ass straight to the carriage and straight off of this right here.
Yeah.
So if these 2 sections, this one doesn't matter. That goes all the way and transfers to the tower. But from this tower out to the hold points here and this tower to the carriage, if that's not dead on parallel and 90 degrees, you're not going to get a good print out of it, an accurate print out of it. If it's pitched like the Creality one is, like if you look at Creality belts, when they come down at an angle on like the Ender 5, and I keep saying people don't realize you can do a 20-20 cube here, do a 20-20 cube out here or out here. It ain't 20-20 no more because that angle belt is changing your pitch. As you get farther out, you're pulling more and more belt, and as you get farther in, you're pulling less and less belt. It's uneven pull, so you're going to get uneven dimensions. It's way worse with a Core XY because of the whole math that it uses to do the angle.
Right. Yeah, I learned that on the rail core. How important shimming those pulleys, because they use these machined. They're super expensive. These machined.
They're shims. They're
shims, but they're like perfect shims, right? So you have to go you're just going like half of a human hair up and down to make it perfect.
Yeah, we did the same thing back when I built drag cars. We did the same thing with like the alternator and the all that stuff. When you build the dragster, you wanted your belt in the front to be exact. So people don't realize when you can lose like a couple 3 horsepower just by having that belt twisting wrong.
Right. So that's why I like on yours. Like they should have come up with something clever like that where you can move the whole thing around. And the other thing is like if you don't buy the pulley or if you don't buy those shims from them, like I tried to buy some on Amazon, and I mean I bought like literally like 5 different brands of and none of them were right. None of them were the thickness I needed.
Yeah, they're all too thick.
They're all a little too thick, or some of them were a little too thin. So I finally had to go to Phil Struder, and he sent me some, but they were expensive. For like 20 of them, they were like $5. You know, super expensive.
It isn't expensive, but it is, considering it's just a shim. But you're paying for the accuracy of that shim.
Yeah.
I don't like having to shim stuff. Now, the advantage to shimming, it's way more secure in the sense of keeping everything, square and straight. This is probably a little bit better adjustability wise. But again, I went through like 6 or 8 of them, getting the spacing of this one to that tower, to the motor, to the carriage. Because again, this is all as close as I could perfectly get in plane.
Right.
And that's the other thing I didn't like. There used to be a bunch of them. Matter of fact, the original Hypercube, I think, used to actually twist the belt going from tower to tower.
I've seen that.
I
think it's so big.
And that is like the worst possible thing you can do.
Right.
Now, again, it's back here going from tower to tower, which has absolutely no bearing on the sense of alignment or pulling or, what it is doing is putting tension on the belt that you don't need. And these belts aren't, I don't care what anyone says, even if you get a Gates, you're going to rub on the bottom edge of one side and the top edge of the other when it hits the pulley, if you're twisting that belt.
Yeah.
And you're putting all kinds of resistance and drags. And if the edge of the belt, the very top surface of the belt, isn't absolutely perfect, you're going to get pulsing and skipping. And it's just twisting a belt is just unnecessary stupidity.
These are the shims.
Yeah.
Little tiny baby, like just a hair thick, little tiny things. Yeah. And you talk about dropping. Right? Oh my god, I've lost more of these than I have on the printer. It's like I try to get them, lick your finger and try to pick them up.
Yeah. If you push down on it really hard and then hold it for a second and then pick it up, it'll stick to your finger. Yeah,
because these are like they tell you, you need like one above and below every bearing, for wearing, I guess. But then there's another shim
spacer so that the inner race doesn't get gets clamped and the outer race doesn't get touched.
That's right. Yeah. But
which I have built into these, which is really not. It's I get away with it. I would not suggest other people doing this.
Why?
Like, it's just really hard to get your printer set perfectly to make that. There's literally,
I like that vertical adjustment like that, though. That's smart.
Yeah, but instead of shims,
I would rather do that.
Really close at this. I have the shim. I don't know if it'll focus on it. I have that shim printed in there. I don't think it'll focus on it.
To stand the bearing off?
There's a little itty bitty tit in there that holds the bearing up off the bottom face.
Right.
And only contacts, and that's the key. It can only contact that inner race. If it contacts the outer race, it's pointless. It's creating drag again. It's got to stay on that inner race so the outer race can roll freely. And it's really hard to do, that small with 3D printing. And the way I do it is make it kind of round, and you got to print it. You have to use Idea Maker or Simplify 3D. Kira and Prusa Slicer won't do it. And you have to do multiple processes because you have to slow it down and do I do like a 0.6 layer height through that area. And then go back to normal 0.2. So if you look at the back of this, again, I don't think there's enough light.
No, I can see it.
But you can see the different layers there. You can definitely see it there.
Right.
You can see it. You can see like in the middle, it's all like 0.01 or 0.06. I don't even remember what my setting is for just that area. And then the rest of it just fill. And then anytime I hit those little bumps, I don't know, will that show them?
Yeah.
See it. This one actually might better. Then get it
I
closed.
thought
You could sort of see it. See the
Mhm.
little washer built right into the print?
Mm-hmm.
Not really focused. There it goes. It's really hard to print.
So you made all that in Fusion?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Believe it or not, when I started this printer, I was still using SketchUp.
How do you in Fusion? How do you model the belts?
I just made a line and paralleled it. I didn't really design the belt into it. I just said, okay, the pulley has, this is the path the belt's going to be.
I see these guys with these belts that are like, like the Voron. I downloaded the Voron Fusion files, and I mean, they have like literally, it looks like a real belt in there.
Yeah. Well, you do a path. You just draw a line.
But they drew all the teeth in and everything.
Yeah. Well, you make a little section with the teeth and everything, just a little one. Then you draw a big long path that's just literally a line, and then you say step and repeat along the path.
Yeah.
It repeats that belt along the path in whatever shape the path is.
Because I think I could design most of a printer if I wanted to. That kind of stuff, like in 3D modeling, like confuses me. The belt stuff, like making it where it's real life. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Again, when I was designing this, I didn't even draw the belts in. I literally drew a line and made just a flat thing and said, okay, this is the path the belt has to travel. All my pulleys had to align, because that's the hardest part, is getting figuring out the face of the pulley and how much the tooth insets and getting it. And I still screw it up. That's why I had to redo these, because I was off by about a 0.5 millimeter. And my tolerance I made so tight right here, where this belt passes by this carriage, that when I came all the way out before with this, it was actually rubbing right there, where it's just like a 0.5 millimeter off of it. If this belt vibrates too much, it'll probably touch. But again, I have these so parallel, there's very little wobble or movement in my belts. The only thing I haven't replaced are the smooth ones here. That's the other thing. Get good freaking pulleys.
Yeah.
Some of my biggest problems were these cheapo pulleys and bearings that were literally out of round. And I mean, so minute. If you just spin it, you'd never notice it. But the minute you tension it and it pulls it.
Yeah.
And, oh my God, the cheapo Chinese ones are terrible. I'm all LDO. I think the LDOs, I got a couple of gates and I got some LDOs, and I think the LDOs are better.
And you wonder where, does he have a manufacturing facility there or no?
Huh?
Does he have a manufacturing facility there?
Who?
LDO?
Where?
In China.
Yeah, he's a Chinese. LDO is a Chinese company.
No, I know.
It's
like
just
his company is so much nicer than everybody else's. Like I bought motors I bought integrated lead screw because this one came with lead screws and had the coupler. And I just asked him if he'd make me a custom set, and he goes, yeah, I'll make it. And I'm telling you, they are straight as an arrow. Straight as an arrow. Like their
stuff is just, you know what it is? And from what I understand, I don't know exactly, but Jason, I don't know if you know Jason.
Yeah, I know Jason. Yeah.
That's who I contact through LDO. He sends me crap all the time. From what I understand, he's just a rep.
Oh, really?
He's just he's our U.S. representative of the company. I don't believe he actually owns it or is a partner. He may be. I'm not positive.
Mm-hmm.
But they have the attitude of, we want to sell to the U.S., well, we got to kiss the U.S. ass. It's basically, I mean, it's putting it bluntly, but they want quality products, and they know most people will pay a little bit more for a good quality mass-produced product. That makes sense.
But I'm surprised he takes the time. Like I just messaged him on Twitter and said, hey, I need these motors with integrated lead screws. What would it cost? And he said $150 shipped to your door. It'll take me 4 weeks, Yeah.
And they'll manufacture them for you.
Yeah, they're just like Prusa's, only bigger, right? And they're like, I mean, because I the problem with one of the things with the rail core is you're constantly trying to align the you're trying to make sure everything's aligned with that motor shaft. And if that's not perfect, it will throw the whole thing out. So I thought, well, I wonder why they didn't do integrated lead screws to begin with, because on that kind of height, like 400 or 300 millimeters tall, it made all the difference in the world, honestly. But
it's just like this. This is a one-off. You won't find another one of these. It's an LDO. Someone said, "Hey, I want to try this," and he made one. And it's different because it's a single start, not a 4-start. And this thing spins and spins and spins and spins and spins and spins and spins. It's like, I don't know, 0.5 of a millimeter rise for every rotation. It's ridiculously tight. And he just sent it to me. He's like, "Well, this has been sitting here. The guy, we tried it. Didn't really work for what he was trying to do. It's a one-off. You can't get another one." And he sent it to me to put on the hodgepodge. And then I said, "Well, I only got one. I want to do dual lead screws." He's like, "Oh, okay. I got a couple more regular ones." And he sent me 2 more regular. And now it's used. It's got marks on it. It was scratched up. You could tell they mounted it on something.
So you're going to use it?
I think I am, because I originally wanted 2, and he couldn't even get me another lead screw without retooling. And he's like, "I'm not going to retool it for something just to give you." Right. I mean, he was giving me this for the hodgepodge, to build the printer. So he sent me 2 more, but now I think what I'm going to do is kind of go like the Voron. I'm still going to use this to lift the X carriage, but I'm going to drive a belt back down across and up the other side. So this will still be the controller, but the belts will keep it level. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you're going to do 2. You're going to basically use one motor to belt both sides.
Yeah, but I'm not going to belt the top.
Yeah,
because that's really dumb. And I can't get another lead screw like this because it's a weird. I'm going to have to figure it out because he can't even remember. I'm going to have to like move it and measure it and change my steps and everything. But so I can't get another lead screw, so I can't support the other side with a lead screw. But what I can do is use this to raise it, drive a belt down like the Voron does, go either underneath the printer or on top, and then just have the other side held by the belt. So you only need 1 lead screw. You really don't need any lead screws. I could take this and put it this way and put the belts on there.
Well, that's all I'm wondering. Are you going to put it sideways?
Well, I don't get this fine adjustment.
You're going to put the motor sideways like that?
No, I'm going to put the motor just like normal.
Yeah.
I'm going to have this attached to the carriage, just like normal on any i3. But then I'm going to have a leaf out with the belt going down and up. And then tie it to the other side with a belt going down and up. So as this goes up, it moves the belt on this side. The other side will get pulled with it. It has to.
That's hard to visualize.
It's really not once you get the concept. And I'm going to use this. So as this carriage goes up, there's a belt tied to this going down to this pulley. So as this goes up, it turns the pulley. So as this goes up, this pulley turns. There's another pulley on the other side doing the same thing. So it keeps them in line.
Interesting.
It's the only way I can think of to use this. I'm only doing it just so I can use this.
Well, unless you belt the top, right, and do like another lead screw on the other side. Oh, you can't get another lead screw? I
can't get another lead screw like this. There's the catch. Otherwise, that's what I asked him. I said, "Can you just send me another lead screw? I don't even need a motor, because then I could just, put the pulley on this lead screw, drive over to the other one, and go up." Can't get another lead screw like this. It's like a weird math. I don't know exactly what it is. I haven't measured it yet. I will when I build it and I move it the first couple of times. I'll move it 10 millimeters. If I only move 9.75 millimeters, then I know to change my E-steps. But
his
that should work without problem.
Those nuts that he sends on his motors are the best. Those anti-backlash, whatever.
Oh God! Well, they're just nuts.
No, I know, but the way they're
triangle instead of a round one.
Oh yeah, mine's different than that. But the way that they design them, where they come off as one piece. The ones I had on there were the 2-piece kind, and every time you take it apart, the spring would go off, and trying to get it back together was a pain in the butt. But
is it one piece?
Yeah, mine came off. Mine came off and on in one piece.
Oh, I see. It's like clamped on.
Yeah, it's weird. It is pretty slick though, man. I have it on the Railcore. It works great.
And I just instead of pushing apart, it clamps it together and tightens it up on it.
Right.
I've never ever looked at that. I've just been, I literally went to take this thing off, and I sat here and did this for like an hour, and the thing only moved an inch. I said, I'm not taking that off. I got to power it up and spin it because I ain't gonna sit there and do this all day long. I've sit here and done this, and as you can see, I'm spinning and spinning and spinning. This thing is not moved.
Yeah. I do that that's what I do on the rail core when I was taking it apart a lot, trying to align it, is I finally just put it on the drill.
Yep. That's the only way I can get that off of there. And I don't really care about taking it off. I just got to figure out the thread count on it, and I can measure it, do all that. But what's even easier? Build the freaking printer. It makes no particle of difference until you go to do your firmware and your steps. And I'll just tell it to move once, measure that amount, do the math to figure out what it should have been and compared to what it did do. Boom, then I know what my main steps are going to be.
Is that the frame on the floor there?
What?
Is that the frame you're going to use that's on the floor?
No, it's over here.
Yeah, what's that?
It's just scrap parts.
Oh.
It's literally scrap crap I have laying around. This whole hodgepodge is just going to be that. It's a hodgepodge of all the junk I got laying around that I don't want sitting in my house no more. I am an anti-clutter person.
Yeah.
I hate clutter. My mother is a collector of everything.
Yeah.
She knows that, I want to sew, and I want to sew this dress with this fabric. So I'm going to buy 8 other kinds of fabric too, because I might use it someday.
Yeah.
No. They're like,
how is your mom?
No, you're not saving money because you would have never bought it in the first place. So even though you got it on sale, you bought something and spent money you never needed to spend in the first place.
In fairness, that's what I do too. I always buy. I have, and I don't know why, but I ended up with like 5 slice heaters here, like the 50-watt heaters. Yeah. Every time, and I totally, like one day I'm like, wait a minute, why do I have so many of these? And every order, I kept ordering another 50-watt heater, and now I got 5 of them. So.
Yeah. See, now I do that to an extent with something I am using, especially a wear disposable, what do you call it?
Consumable.
A consumable.
Yeah.
I'll order and get a few others. I over-order boxes of screws. I'm really getting tired of getting screws, and I got to find a better place.
Me too.
I either order from Open Builds, which I don't know if you did see my post on Twitter
about
the shipping, the screws. People are like, I've done this with everyone, including Chris Warcocky. Open Build screws are freaking awesome. They are, and they're freaking cheap. They're 99 cents for 10, which sounds like a lot. Try and find that super low profile hardened steel screw anywhere else.
Yeah.
I've gone to hardware stores like Master Car. They're like $1.99 a piece.
Yeah. I mean, do they have a free shipping break though? Like where they give you free shipping at like $100 or something?
Something like I think they do. I think it's over 200. But
yeah,
it's a bag of freaking screws, and I don't mind paying shipping. And there's others that are like, whoa, USPS sucks. Well, for one, Open Builds uses all 3. They automatically use whichever one's cheapest, which is fine. I have no problems with that.
Right.
$12 shipping for $12 worth of screws. Those itty bitty packs of screws.
That's how much it costs to ship.
An envelope for $1.99 and ship them to me.
That's how much Prusa charges you to ship 2 rolls of filament from the Czech Republic, $12.
Yeah, but that's what it costs to ship from Czech Republic.
Mm-hmm.
You're going across the border. They're coming from Virginia.
Yeah.
I just sent the 2 Chimeras all the way across the country with parts, weighing in at like 6 or 7 pounds easily for less. It was $11.99. It was under $12, and they want $12 to ship the screws. And I'm not busting on Open Builds as a company. They're using an automatic. They use a shipping company like stamps.com or something that's just tied into their website. So they don't need to figure shipping. It's just when you go on their website, it automatically takes over and says, this is how much shipping is for that weight.
Did you email them to like ask them if they could?
I did, but it was Friday. It was, Wednesday afternoon, New Year's. I don't expect to hear from them until I literally just got an email from them. Like it literally just dinged and popped up, but it's your cart is waiting for you. Yes, I know my cart is waiting for me because I'm not going to pay $12 in shipping.
Why'd you sell your Himeras?
Because I like the Omnia Drop way better.
Did you sell them to somebody we know or what?
Way better. Yeah. He got a pretty good deal.
I would have bought one.
He actually priced them over what I sold them to him for. He wanted to give me more money. I said, nope, that's too much. I just want, again, they were gifted to me. One of them I got because I was in a contest of, give me a reason. There was a guy last year, literally just before Christmas, who had an extra Himera and said, put a story on Facebook or Twitter explaining why I should give you this Himera. And I basically went, I take care of my parents. I'm poor. I would love a Himera. Can't afford one. And there was people that wrote stories and wanted Himera and said, give it to him.
Yeah.
So I got it. Not a week later, my brother shows up for Christmas and goes, here's a Himera. I know you wanted one. So I ended up with 2 of them within a week. So I didn't want to sell them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he offered me
way better, huh?
Yeah. He offered me way more money. I said, no, here's the deal. It's going to cost me X amount to replace them. That's all I want from you. And I'll eat the shipping. So I had to pay the $12 in shipping. Big whoop. Ordered that, which cost me a little bit more than I originally thought anyways, but even still. And he got the Himeras.
No, that's good.
With all the parts, because I had bought extra heat brakes, I had bought extra nozzles, I gave him all that crap. So he got a pretty good deal.
You can't use any of that, right?
Huh?
The Omnia Drop doesn't use any of that, right?
No, the Omnia Drop has its own heat brake, just like the Himera does. Yeah. The Omnia Drop is very similar, like the heat brake and stuff, is very similar to. Well, it's very similar to an MK8 in general concept. The only real difference is the motor drive. That whole centrifugal, loopy, gear-driven gearing, and it is freaking smooth and awesome. And the only thing, everyone's whining about longevity because it's 3D printed. And I haven't had it long enough to say, is it still going to be fine in a year or 2 years from now? But to be honest, I don't care.
Yeah. I mean, he's not just using PLA or PG, right? He's using.
That's the word I was looking for. What was that?
He's using like high-end, high-temp plastics and stuff to build them, right?
The body was PETG originally. Mm-hmm. Everything was PETG. Except for the gear bed and the actual gears. Mm-hmm. She printed out of the IGUS material because it's self-lubricating and, the whole 9 yards.
Right.
But you have to break it in. You got to run the thing for 200 hours before you ever print with it.
Right.
You used to kit. It was about $10 cheaper. And you used to buy the kit. If you watch Chris Riley or the 3D Printing General.
Right.
Videos on them, and they had to build it, and then you plug it in and you run it for 200 hours to break in the gears. He does all the breaking now. He builds it, sends it to you, pre-built, done. You just mount it on your printer. He pre-does everything. For one, he says, I shouldn't expect for the money you're spending on this, because it's not cheap, shipped from Germany, because that's the other thing. It cost me $25 to ship the thing to me. You shouldn't have to build it, put it on your printer, and then not use your printer, have to run your printer for 200 hours or 20 hours or whatever it is. Keep saying 200. I think it's only 20 that he wants you to break it in before you can use your printer. He's like, that's just stupid.
Yeah.
He's like, not only that, it allows me to test everything where it is 3D printed. If my printer skips a layer or does something wrong, or the filament was out of spec or got too humid or whatever. There's no way for me to know until you got it. Where if I pre-test them all, I know before I ship it to you, the freaking thing's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
So you started building them. I think it's $10 more for it, but it's about $180.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's without shipping?
It's without shipping.
Jesus. That's pricey, man.
No, it's 180. It was $185, I think, shipped.
Yeah. I thought they gave it to you.
Huh?
I thought he gave it to you.
He did this one. I just bought another one for that.
Oh, you did?
I sold both my Chimeras. Both of my printers are going to have it on there. That's how much I like it. It is way better than Chimera. Let me rephrase that. It's not way better. It's way more convenient than the Chimeras.
You like the
lighter weight, which I love.
Yeah.
I love direct drive. I absolutely hate Bowden. Had Bowden. I just find it more of an annoyance than direct drive. I will slow down my prints to get better quality and get to direct drive. It's just obnoxious. But that thing's half the weight of a Chimera. As ballsy, it's quieter in the sense of motor driving. It's way louder in the sense of fans, because the fans on it are freaking loud.
Right.
But it's just smoother, it's easier, it's lighter. I mean, it just prints just as well, if not better. Does flexibles like you would not believe. It's actually got a shorter filament path than Chimera does by like half a millimeter, but still. He designed his gears. The other thing I never liked about the Chimera, or the Bondtech for that matter, you have the dual drive gears. Okay? They mesh. When you push the filament in, they separate because they make room for the filament. They're not set in height. They have some spring to them. They come apart. Those gears are meshing. The minute you pull them apart, they have slop.
Yeah.
Because they're no longer tight. They're pulled apart, and you can't have them. You can't have them perfectly straight, or else they wouldn't turn to each other. So when you pull them apart, you have slop. So if you do a small, like if you were to do like one of those castle scenes where it has a bunch of spires at the top, you can actually grind the crap out of your filament, because as the drive one's going back and forth doing retractions, this one's not moving.
Yeah.
Or
what is
moving in a slower proportional rate. So it's
what
not only doing this,
What is it using? That's
same thing. Here's the thing. Same thing. He rounded the gear slightly, and he put them at a 45 or 30 degrees.
Really?
So when they separate, instead of separating, they separate. The way it's designed, it splits it here, not here. The gears always stay meshed. That's a big bonus in my mind. And I will tell you, I've done a lot of prints with the Chimera, and the way the Chimera is designed, when like shreds of filament fall out between the gears, it's all open. People don't realize the bottom of the Chimera is all open in the filament path. All that stuff falls onto the hot block, like all the dust and all that crap when it gets knocked off the gears falls right on the hot block. I literally the first couple of times thought I was leaking because there was a pile of plastic on my heat break and on the hot block. This doesn't do that. When it retracts, those gears never come unmeshed, which is a brilliant freaking concept. His gears are a little bit different, and the Bondtech does the same thing. You just don't see it because all that dust builds up inside the Bondtech. That's the only thing I didn't like about the Bondtech is like once a month I was taking a thing apart and taking a toothbrush to those gears because they were constantly full of plastic. I've taken this apart once, like a week ago. They were like brand new.
Yeah.
There's no build up of crap in those gears anywhere.
Yeah, I mean that's true. If you have grinding filament, it will definitely clog those gears up. And then it keeps clogging more and more.
You'll never notice it in the Humera or anything unless you do a lot of retractions. Like again, if you did like the castle that has a bunch of spires on it, so it's going over, doing a little thing, retracting, going over, doing a little itty bitty thing, retracting, going over, doing a little itty bitty thing, retracting. Oh, my iPad just kicked the bucket.
I was gonna say, it must be out of battery, huh?
Yeah, it just goes to sleep. I have the auto go to sleep if it's not doing anything. But yeah, the battery's dead. It won't even turn on. It was already low. I didn't expect to be on this long.
I might have to check that out.
Yeah, it's not cheap. But then think about if you were to get a Bondtech and like Mosquito,
Yeah,
you spend twice as much. You're pushing $300. This is still under 200, and it does everything those will do. Now, what it won't do yet is like super high temp materials.
why not?
About 280, 290 because it's a 3D printed body. Even though it's heater core and everything, it's all the heat block isn't going to dissipate fast enough. It's really designed for flexibles.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main. You can do them. You can go up. I think he said 300 is about where you're capping it. Now that his little ring heater won't keep up. You can, and people have put tornadoes. Is that what they're? What the hell's the name of the really long E3D heat?
Oh, the volcano,
volcanoes. You can put those on there. He says it should keep up to it. Not really what it was designed for.
But the volcano is going to have its own.
Well, you're still screwing it up into it.
Right.
Into his.
So it's basically just got a standard heat break. Then at the bottom, you can put any block.
No, the heat break is not this. The heat break is not standard. It's his, and the heat block is a round one. The actual heater.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw that.
And the heat block is all round. It's all built in. It more evenly distributes the heat. Blah blah blah. I don't know if that's reality or not. At this point, who cares? I think it's cool. It's lighter. It has less issues. There's less parts in it. The only downside is anything goes wrong with it, you're replacing the whole unit, not just buying the heater core or a block but changing the nozzle's easier. It's just so many little things. There's no
why is changing the nozzle easier? Because you still gotta hold that ring.
It's got a built-in like wrench holder. If you look at it, there's like a little wrench holder on the top of it.
Oh yeah.
Put it on there. There's no trying to clamp the block and not hit the heater or not crush the thermistor wires.
Yeah.
You got a spot, you clamp it on there, you screw it on there, you unscrew it, and it works. I've put like 3 nozzles on this thing. It is way easier.
Yeah.
Just way easier.
I like the mosquitoes because I have basically slice on everything now, but I like that I can just go up and twist it. Yeah.
The slice is a little bit better in that sense because they're using the soft copper. So if you take it off cold, it don't matter because when you tighten it up, the copper is so soft that the minute you tighten up into it, it seals.
Yeah, I'm getting ready on the Artemis. I haven't done it yet. I'm waiting for something to break before I do it. But I bought the 713 Makers adapter for the Smart Effector. Man, that guy makes some cool stuff, man. $20 though for this little piece of aluminum. It's like this big.
Because what made him was back to the FT5. He used to do like real fancy scrolly corner brackets for the FT5 back in the day.
Right.
That's what made him. He got to the point where he stopped taking orders and shut his website down. And everyone's like, "Oh, he's gone away." And he kept going on Facebook and Twitter and going, "No, I'm not gone away. I just don't have the time to make all you keep ordering way more. This is a hobby." He's like, "I got a real job."
Well, when I first started, when I first got the Artemis, I wanted to put this mosquito on there, and I made a 3D printed adapter set for it, but mine needed spacers and all kinds of stuff. And he told me back then that he was making an adapter for it, and he finally just came out with it. It's been almost 2 years, basically. But
very anal.
Yeah, and this is like $20 some. for this little piece, but it solves the problem. I mean, this bolts right into the factory location. Use all the factory stuff to hold the heater in, or hold the whole hot end in. So
it's all custom made.
Yeah, exactly.
He makes that right there in his garage on his fancy CNC machine, which he's got a pretty fancy CNC machine. And
right.
He built it out of aluminum, and it's solid stock aluminum. It's not like mass-produced, stamped-out Chinese crap.
Yeah. He also made the top plate for the rail core, the ring or whatever you want to call it. I forget what they call it, but so you just bolt that down to the frame, and it squares the frame. It automatically pulls the frame square no matter what. And that was awesome, because I didn't realize that my frame was that far out of whack until I put that. They mill this huge piece of aluminum. They got to start with an enormous piece of aluminum.
Yeah,
and
cheap, I think.
You go and loosen everything up, and you put it on there, and all of a sudden you see that frame just like, oh my God, this thing is way out of whack. Way, like, it was way tweaked. But that pulls it all back into alignment, aligns your belts better, that kind of stuff. But that was actually, it's not that bad. It was like $150 for that. But
yeah,
this little guy was $25 or something. So
my next pair will probably be a box frame. I know it'll be box frame. I only do the I-frames because they're easy and cheap.
I like the switch wire build. I think that is a very interesting, the Corex Z or whatever. Corex Z.
I will go with the Raise 3D / Ultimaker X Motion. I think the more I look, there's a reason that Ultimaker has done that and stuck with it, because it's easily the most accurate and most maintainable and easiest to diagnose. The biggest thing with Corex Y is trying to diagnose what's wrong.
Yeah,
is near freaking impossible.
But that motion system is still a Cartesian, though, right? Or no?
Yeah, it's there's a motor for X and there's a motor for Y, and the X is on the hot end.
Well, I have a.
You just don't have the motor like the Ender 5. The X motor is on the Y carriage. Where they get rid of it by adding a few belts, which there's still a lot of belts, but there's less belting than a Corex Y. Yeah. And every axis has their own motion system. So if an axis goes down or has a problem or has a bad pulley or blah, 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 it's easily detectable. You'll see it in the print. You can go, okay, that's wrong. It's this axis. Corex Y, you can't do that.
Yeah, that's great. Because it's using both motors to do every movement.
Yeah, it could be either or, and all the pulleys, and all the belts, and all the belts and pulleys interact and affect every single little motion on there, no matter what direction it's going. Every pulley and every idler and every belt affects every direction of motion.
Well, my
when pulleys out, you don't know which pulley.
Finder that's like that. The Flash all the Flash Forges are like that. They have
they're X frames, aren't they?
Yeah, it's the same thing though. You got two, and they use linear rods like the does. And
where I kind of got this idea from, with the pulley on each end, you put the motor in the middle. The LDO makes a motor now with the lead screws coming out or screws coming out either side for that. So you can put the motor in the middle, and it already has the length of rod on either side. You put a pulley on it, boom, you're done.
Huh.
They make one that way now.
I would like to build a printer. I just can't think of. I guess I'm not creative enough to think of, what hasn't already been done.
They've all been done. I mean, even when I did it, it's just, what do you want to change? When I built this thing, it was I want to build a base frame on said size and have as much volume printable. Again, everyone was, building these big, massive 600, 500, 1,000 millimeter frames and only getting 200 or 300 millimeters of printable area because all the hardware is smashed inside the box in the way of things moving. So I was like, take everything outside the box, build the box, take everything outside the box, and get the maximum printable area from said size box.
Yeah.
which worked sort of.
Yeah.
Anyway, I gotta go because it's lunchtime and I have to feed Mom. I can already hear her stirring down there.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, it was nice talking to you, man.
Yeah, it's been fun.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
Normal. Later, guys.
Bye.
So on that note, we got my belts on, everybody, and it looks all right. I haven't printed with it yet, but on that note, I'm gonna kill it. Have a good day, everyone. Hopefully someone else will start streaming now. Sees yous.